When Emma was 15, her life was suddenly turned upside down. After losing her father, her mother had decided to remarry after years of loneliness. This marriage meant that Emma had to live under the same roof with a man she had never met, and his son Ethan. New house, new rules, new people. Everything was foreign. It was not easy for Emma to get used to this arrangement. Most of the time she stayed in her room, immersing herself in her books or her drawings. She was quiet and withdrawn. Ethan was the opposite. He was energetic, confident, and talkative. At 16, Ethan seemed to settle into Emma's life quickly. But appearances are sometimes deceiving. Ethan was attracted to Emma from the first moment he saw her. It took time to realize why. There was a deep sadness in Emma's eyes. When he looked into those eyes, he saw himself. Ethan had also lost his mother many years ago, and this loss had left indelible marks on his life. At first, both of them were distant. They lived in the same house, but hardly ever spoke. While Ethan spent most of the time outside with his friends, Emma had built her own world inside the house. But one night, this silence was broken. That night, the power went out in the house. Emma went down to the parlor, afraid to be alone in the dark. Ethan was sitting there with a candle. "Are you afraid of the dark?" he asked with a slight smile. "No," Emma replied, crossing her arms defensively. "I just don't like it." Ethan handed her one of the candles. "Then you don't have to sit alone. I'm not scary." That night, they talked for hours by candlelight in the dark. Emma talked about her father, the songs he hummed as he fixed the old car, his warm smile. Ethan talked about his mother, her strength, and the emptiness left by her absence. Everything changed after that moment. The distance between them gradually decreased. They began to spend more and more time together. Ethan realized that Emma couldn't wake up in the morning without a cup of coffee, and Emma realized that Ethan always sketched something before going to sleep at night. The little details brought them closer together. But one day, they realized that this bond went beyond the boundaries of brotherhood. One morning, Ethan looked into Emma's eyes as he cleared the breakfast table. There was not the usual warmth in them, but a look in which he felt that something had changed. "Emma," he said, his voice shaking, "have you ever thought, why are we like this?" Emma's heart began to race. "What do you mean?" Ethan took a step but paused. "It's just, I don't see you as my brother. I never have." Emma took a deep breath. That sentence had revealed a truth she already felt. But at that moment, she didn't know how to answer. Because even if what she felt was true, the situation they were in was chaotic. From that point on, their relationship changed completely. They had to hide their feelings for each other, from their families, friends, and their environment. But these feelings were not the kind that could be hidden. Nothing was ever the same after that day. Ethan and Emma were fighting a silent war under the weight of their feelings. They lived in the same house, sat at the same table, but quickly avoided each other when they locked eyes. These feelings were far beyond the boundaries of brotherhood, and they both knew it. One evening, Ethan knocked on her bedroom door. Emma was drawing and looked up, startled. There was Ethan in the doorway, hands in his pockets, looking uneasily at the floor. "Can we talk?" he asked. Emma nodded involuntarily. Ethan came in and sat in a chair in the corner of the room. There was a long silence between them. Only the ticking of the clock on the wall filled the room. "Emma," Ethan began, an unusual vulnerability in his voice. "I know. What we're feeling, it's not normal. But I'm tired of trying to suppress it every time I see you." Emma's hand paused over her sketchbook. She had been waiting for Ethan to say something, but she still didn't know how to respond when she heard it. "Ethan, we shouldn't think about this," Emma said, her voice shaking. "We're sisters. That's how everyone sees it. Our mom, your dad, society." Ethan was silent for a moment, then lifted his head and stared at Emma. "We're stepbrothers, Emma. We both know that. We're not related by blood. Are we going to deny how we feel just because people see it that way?" Emma couldn't say anything. She knew he was right. But that didn't mean it was right. It was getting harder and harder to keep living with these feelings. Ethan took Emma's silence as a confirmation. He got up from his seat and approached Emma. At that moment, the distance between them seemed to close completely. Emma looked up and saw the determination in Ethan's eyes. They were so close that their heartbeats were almost mingling. "Ethan," Emma said in a whisper. "I won't do anything if you don't want me to," Ethan said. "But I know you feel it too. Just be honest with me." Emma looked away for a moment. Her mind was in turmoil, but finally, she mustered up the courage to look Ethan in the eye. "I love you too," she said. This sentence was a turning point for both of them. In that moment, they left the whole world outside. Ethan took Emma's hand, and they felt that the bond between them had reached a point of no return. Their relationship was now a secret known only to the two of them, a bond that their families and their environment did not realize. When they went to the same university, they started to feel free in a new city, far away from their families. However, this freedom did not mean that everything would be easy. One day, Ethan and Emma were walking on campus when they met a group of friends. Their new friends noticed the way Ethan and Emma looked at each other. "How cute," one of them said. "Are you a couple?" Emma's face suddenly flushed. "No, she's my sister," Ethan quickly interjected, trying to smile. But it made them both uncomfortable. Having to hide their feelings by pretending to be brothers all the time was exhausting them both. One evening, Ethan spoke to Emma at a cafe near the campus. "Emma, we can't go on like this," he said. "Either we accept this relationship and don't care what anyone says, or we leave each other." Emma averted her eyes from Ethan. "But what if people find out? What if our parents find out? Ethan, it could ruin us." Ethan took a deep breath. "I want to be with you, but it's your decision. If you want to give up this bond, I would never blame you. But I will never regret loving you." Emma's mind was at war. She was stuck between what her heart wanted and what her logic told her. Emma thought long and hard about what Ethan had said at the cafe that night. Her heart wanted to be with him, but her logic kept asking, "What if we don't make it?" But in the end, she decided to follow her heart. Because no matter how much difficulty they went through, giving up on Ethan would hurt her more. The next day, Emma and Ethan met by the lake on campus. Ethan was waiting nervously to hear her decision. "Ethan," Emma said, taking a deep breath. "I love you too, and I'm not going to run away from those feelings no matter what, but it won't be easy. Are you ready?" Ethan took Emma's hands and looked into her eyes. "I'm ready for anything when I'm with you." That sentence strengthened the bond between them even more. Now they were together and ready to stand against the world. At first, they continued to keep their relationship secret. University was their space of freedom, but they still had to be careful. Most people only knew them as half-brothers, and so their closeness didn't seem strange to anyone. But they both knew it couldn't last forever. One day, Ethan turned to Emma and asked, "What are we afraid of? We are half-sisters. This isn't hurting anyone. Why do we feel we have to hide it?" Emma shrugged hesitantly. "Because people won't understand. They'll judge. They'll blame us." Ethan shook his head from side to side. "Maybe people don't care as much as we think. We have to be brave for our own happiness, Emma. At least tell our closest friends. Otherwise, this secret will eat us up." Emma agreed that Ethan was right. They decided to talk to Sophia and James, who were both close friends. One evening, they would invite them for coffee and tell them everything. That night, the table in the cafe was full of tension. Sophia realized that something was strange. "What's going on? You said you had something to tell me," she said, raising her eyebrows. Ethan took a deep breath. "Yes, we need to tell you something. Emma and I are together. I mean, we're a couple." Sophia's eyes widened. James leaned back in the chair in surprise. "But you're sisters," James said, puzzled. Emma quickly interjected. "Half-brothers. We're not related by blood, but we know it's still unusual. We just didn't want to keep it from you." Sophia was silent for a while. Then she smiled. If it makes you happy, then we have to accept it too. It doesn't matter what anyone says. I support you. James was a little more cautious. Society doesn't accept it easily. But if you're determined, I'm behind you. That night, Emma and Ethan felt a weight lifted. At least a few people knew their truth and supported them. But the real challenge was to tell their parents the truth. After a few months, Emma and Ethan decided to summon the courage. One evening when their parents came home for the holidays, they gathered in the living room. Ethan began. We need to tell you something. It's not easy, but we don't want to hide it anymore. Emma and I, we love each other, and we're a couple. His mother clapped her hands over her mouth in shock. Her father was silent at first, then took a deep breath and spoke. Ethan, Emma, this is so unexpected. I don't know how to take it, but if you are happy and this is your choice, I will try to accept it in time. Her mother was struggling. But what will society say? What will people think? They will talk about your relationship. Emma took her mother's hand. Mom, the most important thing for us is your support. It doesn't matter what other people say. We love each other, and that is not wrong. Over time, their families began to accept this situation, because seeing their happiness overcame any prejudice. Emma and Ethan continued their relationship despite the difficulties. When they finished university, they built a life where they no longer had to hide their relationship. What people said was no longer important to them, because courage had led them to their dreams.